Well, welcome back everybody to our online program on the stigma of addiction. And there's this curious thing about the stigma, and here it is, that when somebody does drugs, they go through, certain feelings. The psychologists called this embodied memory. So there's pleasure, there's side effects of drug use, there's perceptual distortion. Sometimes, time changes. And a lot of times we now know that the person doing drugs isn't really aware of that kind of stuff. They just sort of go through this experience. It's like the body experiences something, but consciously they really don't understand it until they start thinking about it, right? Until they start reflecting on it. And so what do they think about? What do they reflect about? Well, the research has shown that what people using drugs tend to do is take what they've been told by, for example, television or their doctor or, some self-help book they've read. In other words, the way they're going to start making sense of the addiction is by listening to other people. So it's kind of curious. So for example, let's say they're drinking a lot, they really don't understand what's going on, they might join Alcoholics Anonymous. And Alcoholics Anonymous has a very clear way of understanding alcoholism. I mean, AA says that the body is alcoholic. AA says that they can't possibly deal with this by themselves because it's just so overwhelming. They have to go to a group of like-minded thinkers. That it's going to demand this gigantic change in them. In the big book it says an entire psychic change. So that's one view. If they were to go to a medical doctor who's certified in addiction medicine, they might hear that they have a brain disease. So they have this disease that they're forced to deal with. Similarly, if they had bipolar disorder or major depression. Or if they were to listen to law enforcement, they would probably hear that, they're like a criminal, right? So they have either criminal tendencies or irresponsible or something along that line. In other words, the way we now know from research that the way people make sense of their drug use is actually based on whatever story that they're listening to. In other words, the society. So here's the kicker, of course. If society says you're out of control or diseased or you're a criminal and you start making sense of yourself and your drug use that way, this isn't going to be a big help if you want to get over the problem. And there was a very interesting experiment done. It was done with a group of marijuana users. And they were like split in two. So group A and group B. And group A marijuana users, and these were all males, by the way, they were shown research evidence that marijuana will negatively affect their ability to think. Okay? Group B was not shown that evidence. Okay? And then both groups were actually given a test where they had to think through things, and a test of their thinking, right? It's going to measure their thinking. Well, interestingly enough, the group that was shown the scientific evidence that marijuana negatively affects their thinking did very poorly on the thinking test. But the marijuana users who never heard about this evidence, they did fine. So that's kind of interesting, eh? It's like, you tell them the way they think, and then they sort of grow into that. Oh, and just for your own information, with the women marijuana users, they actually did way better than all the men. So that was kind of interesting. At any rate, it's this idea then that how someone with a drug problem makes sense of himself or herself and what they're going through has a lot to do with what society is telling them is going on for them. Anyway, that's it for this episode, and we'll be back next time with another episode on the stigma of addiction.